If you want to be smart about dealing with difficult people, squash negative self-talk. Sometimes you absorb the negativity of other people. There's nothing wrong with feeling bad about how someone is treating you. But your self-talk, the thoughts that you have about your feelings, can intensify the negativity or help you move past it. Negative self-talk is unrealistic, unnecessary, and self-defeating. It sends you into a downward emotional spiral that is difficult to pull out of. You should avoid negative self-talk at all costs. Difficult people defy logic. Some are blissfully unaware of the negative impact that they have on those around them, and others seem to derive satisfaction from creating chaos and pushing other people's buttons. Now, either way, they create unnecessary complexity, strife, and worst of all, stress. What's going on, guys? If you're new to the channel and like personal development, then hit that subscribe button. And if at any point you like what you see, then give it a like. If you don't, give it a thumbs down, it's cool. Just leave the comments of what you didn't like. Studies have long shown that stress can have a lasting negative impact on the brain. Exposure to even a few days of stress compromises the effectiveness of neurons in the hippocampus, which is an important brain area responsible for reasoning and memory. Now, weeks of stress can cause irreversible damage to neuron dendrites, which are the small arms that brain cells use to communicate with each other. And months of stress can permanently destroy neurons. Stress is a formidable threat to your success. When stress gets out of control, your brain and your performance will suffer. Most sources of stress at work are easy to identify. If your non-profit is working to land a grant that your organisation needs to function, you're bound to feel stress and likely know how to manage it. It's the unexpected sources of stress that take you by surprise and harm you the most. Recent research from the Department of Biological and Clinical Psychology at Friedrich University in Germany found the exposure to stimuli that cause strong negative emotions, which is the same kind of exposure you get when dealing with difficult people, caused subjects' brains to have a massive stress response. Now, whether it's negativity, cruelty, the victim syndrome, or just plain craziness, difficult people drive your brain into a stressed out state that should be avoided at all costs. The ability to manage your emotions and remain calm under pressure has a direct link to your performance. TalentSmart has conducted research with more than 1 million people, and they found that 90% of top performers are skilled at managing their emotions in times of stress in order to remain calm and in control. One of their greatest gifts is the ability to neutralize difficult people. Top performers have well-honed coping strategies that they employ to keep difficult people at bay. Now, while I've run across numerous effective strategies that smart people employ when dealing with difficult people, what I'm going to go through today are some of the best. Now, to deal with difficult people effectively, you need an approach that enables you across the board to control what you can and eliminate what you can't. The important thing to remember is that you are in control of far more than you realise. Number one, they set limits. Complainers and negative people are bad news because they wallow in their problems and fail to focus on solutions. They want people to join their little pity party so that they can feel better about themselves. People often feel pressure to listen to complainers because they don't want to be seen as callous or rude. But there's a fine line between lending a sympathetic ear and getting sucked into their negative emotional spiral. You can avoid this only by setting limits and distancing yourself when necessary. Think of it this way: if the complainer was smoking and you don't smoke, would you sit there all afternoon inhaling the secondhand smoke? You'd probably distance yourself, and you should do the same with complainers. A great way to set limits is to ask the complainer how they intend to fix the problem. Now, they will either quiet down or redirect the conversation in a productive direction. Number 2 is they rise above. Difficult people drive you crazy because their behavior is so irrational. Make no mistake about it, their behavior truly goes against reason. So while you do allow yourself to respond to them emotionally and get sucked into the mix, the more irrational and off base someone is, the easier it should be for you to remove yourself from their traps. Quit trying to beat them at their own game. Distance yourself from them emotionally and approach your interactions like they're a science project, or you're their shrink, if you prefer the analogy. You don't need to respond to the emotional chaos, only the facts. Point number 3 is they stay aware of their emotions. Maintaining emotional distance requires awareness. You can't stop someone from pushing your buttons if you don't recognize when it's happening. Sometimes you'll find yourself in situations where you need to regroup and choose the best way forward. And this is fine. You shouldn't be afraid to buy yourself some time to do this. Think of it this way. If a mentally unstable person approaches you on the street and they tell you that they're John F. Kennedy, you're unlikely to set him straight. When you find yourself with a co-worker who is engaged in similarly derailed thinking, sometimes it's best to just smile and nod. If you're going to have to straighten them out, it's better to give yourself some time to plan the best way to go about it. Point number 4 is they establish boundaries. This is the area where most people tend to sell themselves short. They feel like because they live or work with someone, they have no way to control the chaos. This couldn't be further from the truth. Once you've found your way to rise above a person, you'll begin to find their behavior more predictable and easier to understand. Now, this will then equip you to think rationally about when and where you have to put up with them and when you don't. For example, even if you work with someone closely on a project in a team, that doesn't mean that you need to have the same level of one-on-one interaction with them that you have with other team members. You can establish a boundary, but you'll have to do so consciously and proactively. If you let things happen naturally, you are bound to find yourself constantly embroiled in difficult conversations. But if you set your boundaries and decide when and where you'll engage with a difficult person, you can then control much more of the chaos. The only trick is to stick to your guns and keep your boundaries in place when the person tries to encroach upon them, which they probably will. Point number 5 is they don't die in the fight. Smart people know how important it is to live to fight another day, especially when your foe is a toxic individual. In conflict, unchecked emotion makes you dig your heels in and fight the kind of battle that can leave you severely damaged. Now, when you read and respond to your emotions, you're able to choose your battles wisely and only stand your ground when the time is right. Point number 6, they don't focus on problems, only solutions. Where you focus your attention determines your emotional state. When you fixate on the problems you're facing, you create a prolonged negative emotion and stress. So when you focus on actions to better yourself and your circumstances, you then create a sense of personal efficiency that produces positive emotions and reduces stress. Now, when it comes to toxic people, fixating on how crazy and how difficult they are gives them power over you. Quit thinking about how troubling your difficult person is and focus on how you're going to go about handling them. This makes you more effective by putting you in control, and it will reduce the amount of stress you experience when interacting with them. Point number 7 is they don't forget. Emotionally intelligent people are quick to forgive, but that doesn't mean that they forget. Forgiveness requires letting go of what happened so that you can move on. It doesn't mean you'll give a wrongdoer another chance. Smart people are unwilling to be bogged down unnecessarily by others' mistakes, so they let them go quickly and are assertive in protecting themselves from future harm. Point number 8, they squash negative self-talk. Sometimes you absorb the negativity of other people. There's nothing wrong with feeling bad about how someone is treating you. But your self-talk, which is the thoughts that you have about your feelings, can either intensify the negativity or help you move past it. Negative self-talk is unrealistic, unnecessary, and self-defeating. It sends you into a downward emotional spiral that's difficult to pull out of. You should avoid negative self-talk at all costs. All right, point number 9, they get some sleep. I've beaten this one to death over the years and can't say enough about the importance of sleep to increasing your emotional intelligence and managing your stress levels. When you sleep, your brain literally recharges so that you wake up alert and clear-headed. Your self-control, attention and memory are all reduced when you don't get enough, or the right kind of sleep. Sleep deprivation raises stress hormone levels on its own, even without a stressor present. A good night's sleep makes you more positive, creative and proactive in your approach to toxic people, giving you the perspective you need to deal effectively with them kind of people. Point number 10, they use their support system. It's tempting, yet entirely ineffective to attempt tackling everything by yourself. To deal with toxic people, you might need to recognize the weaknesses in your approach to them. Now this means tapping into your support system to gain perspective on a challenging person. Now, everyone has someone at work and or outside of work who's on their team, rooting for them and ready to help them get the best from a difficult situation. Identify these individuals in your life and make an effort to seek their insight and assistance when you need it. Now, something as simple as explaining the situation can lead to a new perspective. Most of the time, other people can see a solution that you can't because they are not as emotionally invested in the situation. Before you get this system to work brilliantly, you're going to have to pass some tests. Most of the time, you will find yourself tested by touchy interactions with problem people. Thankfully, the plasticity of the brain allows it to mold and change as you practice new behaviors, even when you fail. Implementing these healthy, stress-relieving techniques for dealing with difficult people will train your brain to handle stress more effectively and hopefully decrease the likelihood of ill effects. Well, that's it for today, everyone. If you've enjoyed the content and haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Leave some comments and let us know what you didn't like. If you'd like to be notified of new episodes, hit that notification bell. This has been Richard Roza. Peace out.